Hello, my name is Brie Bilsma, and today I'm going to be showing you the process of making egg tempura. Egg tempura is a paint that was often used Renaissance era and previously before the invention of oil paint, but is something that you can still make today and just takes a few simple ingredients. All you need is some eggs, any type will do. Some white vinegar, and pigments. You can either use store-bought, natural, you can use artificial pigments too, but I'm trying to go for natural pigments here. So you can use store-bought like this turmeric here, or you can grind up your own, which I will show you how to do later in the video. All right, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna crack your eggs and separate the whites from the yolks. We want to use the yolk in egg tempura because of its texture and because of the proteins in it have more binding properties, whereas the whites aren't really good for making paint out of. Now, don't waste the whites. They work fine with, like, you know, you can make like an all white egg omelet or something like that. So just crack your egg like so. And then I try to let the white fall out between the shells when it's cracked open. And then you just toss your yolk slowly back and forth like so. Between the shells, trying to leave a little bit of a gap for the whites to get out. You want to get as much of that white out as possible, while also being careful not to crack the yolk. Just as much as possible. And then you just put your yolk in a separate container. Easy as that. Crack it. Let the yolk fall out as much as you can before you completely open the egg. Kind of roll it back and forth can help a bit. Let the yolk fall to one side and open up the egg. If you get a bit of shell in there, you can always fish that out later. And just put the egg back and forth between your halves. Nice and simple. We're just trying to separate out that white as much as possible. All right, now let's talk about grinding up pigments. You can always buy artificial or pre-ground pigments, as I showed before. A lot of spices have good color to them. Or you can get like ultramarine blue from various companies online. But if you're trying to grind up your own, you're gonna need a little thing like this called a mortar and pestle. Now there are many out there. I know that London Drugs and Canadian Tire have them. You can also find them on many online retailers such as Amazon. It's important that you read the instructions for how to take care of your mortar and pestle because each one's gonna be different. Some require oils, some don't. Yeah, just watch what your instructions say. So for this demonstration, we're going to be grinding up some charcoal to make a black pigment. Charcoal is a natural pigment you can get from like burning wood. These are just leftover charcoal sticks from a drawing project I was working on. So when you're grinding up pigments, generally it is advised that you wear a face mask of some sort so that you're not breathing in a bunch of dust particles. And you just kind of start making circular motions with your pestle into the bowl. And you start with that, and you're just trying to get all the big chunks down to smaller chunks. You want to try to avoid doing big movements because or else you're going to just send your pigment flying everywhere, especially as it gets ground finer and finer. So you just keep at it like this for a while until you have smaller chunks. And then you start going around and sort of pressing the pigment chunks that you have into the sides of your bowl. And just kind of going around in nice, slow, circular motions. And this is going to take longer than you think it's going to take. It's going to take like a good 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how big the size of your original particles are, and how tough they are to break. And you can do this with other things like dried flowers, dried leaves, or something like coffee grounds even. So I'll come back to you once this is a fine powder. All right, I have finished grinding up my powder. As you can see, it leaves a nice fine coating on the pestle. And if I scoop some up, it's a very, oh, camera, there we go. It's a very nice fine powder. Kind of similar to, you know, store-bought spices that you get in bulk. So the next step is to combine our ingredients. I would suggest using little sealable cups so that you can use your pigment over a longer time. There is the concern that egg tempura tends to dry pretty fast. So having them in sealable cups, you can, and keeping them in the fridge so you can store them for longer is advisable. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your egg, your yolks, which I have prepared a lot because I plan on making a lot of paint, so they're in a container right here. You're just gonna take, I would say not even like a full, like about a quarter cup, give or take, which is what this is. You're just gonna put that in your little container. And then egg tempura recipes online, they all have different measurements for how much pigment versus how much yolk versus how much vinegar. So I would say start with less and you can always add more. Something like charcoal like this is a very potent kind of pigment. So you don't necessarily need a lot of it to get a very black paint. You're just gonna mix it until it's a consistent color. All right, as you can see, my egg white is now black. And if you drip it off the spoon, you can't really see any transparency with it. So that's how you know you got a good pigment. Now, this is where the vinegar comes in because you can change the consistency of it based on how much vinegar you put in. If you want it to act more like an acrylic, you might not want to add much, if any at all, because you want it to be this thicker consistency. But if you want it to be a thinner consistency and act more like a gouache or a watercolor, then you could add a little bit of vinegar. I would say like start with like half a tablespoon at a time, so you're not adding too much. And just mix it in and eventually you'll get the consistency you want. There we go. So I thinned it out just a little bit and that's more of the consistency I'm looking for. And then ideally you want to do this on wood, but you could also do like Bristol board or any sort of like cardboardy, porous sort of surface. Watercolor paper would also probably work pretty well. And yeah, that is how you make egg tempura paint from scratch. Thank you for watching.